Okay, I got a story time tonight. This isn't actually a story time. This is an alternate storyline. Alternate storyline called the Uchiha Dynasty and how this would have been done, right? If I were writing it. So at the start of it, right, Hashirama and Madara are given the, task of finding the Nine Tails. And whoever found the Nine Tails would get, favor with the feudal lord of the land of fire, all right? This is how the story goes, all right? So now they find the Nine Tails, or they're looking for it, and Madara actually finds it, takes control of it, but then he's like, I need your help, because I can only control the beast, I can't seal it away. He was working with Hashirama. See, because in this timeline, Izuna didn't die, all right? But all their other brothers died, right? So they still have that shit there, but it's not like how it was in the original timeline. Madara did find the Nine Tails first, and Hashirama's a guy that's like that, right? He's a genuine cool guy, right? So when they went to the feudal lord, he was like, Madara. We were like, Madara found the tail beast, put it under Genjutsu, and then I, found my wife. She's of the Uzumaki clan, sealed it inside of her. The feudal lord decided then to make Madara the first Hokage because he decided to cooperate with Hashirama, who was of another, clan, right? They created the Hidden Leaf because it was still one of their things that they had from childhood. And now that their fathers were dead, they could then, make that shit happen, right? So the first Hokage was Madara. He died fighting in the first wars, right? Because all the other nations wanted tail beasts. So we're just gonna say they were after the Seven Tails, all right? Because the Seven Tails was an outlier, right? It didn't belong to any of the five great nations. It was part of the other nations that weren't a part of the five great nations, and they were trying to encroach on those people's lands. So then Madara was like, "Oh, we have to go to war with these people now and protect those villages so they can keep their tail beasts." He was killed during that time. It wasn't an easy fight though. It was like one of those things where there was a lot of people around. And, he got jumped. And Kinkaku and Ginkaku were part of that them days too, so they were around then too. That leads into the second Hokage being Izuna. Hashirama also died during that time. He fought after Madara died. Um, they wanted him to go get the eyes, right? Go get Madara's eyes. Um, and that was an order given to him by Izuna. Izuna was like, "Go find my brother's eyes for me," and he was like, "I'll do it," because that's Hashirama. Now his brother was kind of sideways about it, but he was like, "Hey man, I gotta fucking help my friend out." So he went to find those eyes, right? He took them out of Madara's head, and then they the Uchiha like kind of like were like stay away from Lord Sai for a few days. Let my get his eyes right. And then Toby Rama took it like he knew, right? Because he's always like finding their dicks and shit a little bit. And he's like, "Oh shit, your eyes are different now." And he's like, "Well, I need to see better if I'm the Hokage, right?" Um, he ordered Hashirama to go, fight against the Kinkakus because they were already, in a battle against their Kage, right? They had already cut down the second Kage. So they both went, right? They both went. Both the brothers went. Tobirama was there too, but Tobirama was actually a sensei to Danzo Shimura. That'll come into play later, right? He would try to find eyeballs later on in his life. So, um, Tobirama went and he went to fight. They got killed not by just them. It was like they had a whole army with them. Yeah, it wasn't like they died to just the Kenkaku brothers. They died to like everybody. It was like almost everybody in their group, and they had a big group because they had rogue ninjas from other villages fighting too. So they got jumped, killed, because of this. And they also, and this was another thing that was going on during that time. They had actually kidnapped Mito. This is what actually got Tobirama to go after him, right? Because Mito Uzumaki got kidnapped by one of their guys, and they ended up summoning the Nine Tails. They got ate by the Nine Tails, and then they ate the chakra. That's what they used to kill Hashirama and Tobirama, right? Tobirama found Mito, and then he was with some people, and those people were like, he was like, get her back to the village. I'll fight these guys off to protect the village. And he was like, okay, because like you gotta understand, Hashirama and Tobirama, they're from the Warring States period, and that's what they do. They fight, and especially Tobirama, he was like that. So that's what he did. He died like that. Um, so then the second Hokage, who's Izuna now, was like, okay, we have the Nine Tails back. Hiruzen and all these other people. Kagame's also a part of the mix. He's an Uchiha who was actually the father of Shisui Uchiha. So that's going to come into play later in the story too. They were all going to find Kinkaku and Ginkaku because they heard about what happened to the second Raikage, and they were like, yes, we have to defeat these guys. It could bring peace for some time, because that's the reason why they got killed. They could cause problems for other villages too. They have the powers of the Nine Tails, and not just that, they have the sealing urines of the Sage of Six Paths. So they went and Izuna was like, he was looking at three guys, right? He was looking at Hiruzen, who was pretty damn good, right? He was looking at Danzo, who didn't like him but wanted the position, and he was like, Kagame, you're the new Hokage. You lead them well, And he looked at him with the Sharingan, like the Mangekyo, and he knew that he was gonna be the Hokage the next day. Izuna was able to like kill one of the brothers, and then he sealed one of them inside the sealing urn. And then that one was later killed by the third Raikage, right? Because he was like unsealed, and then they had a little bout, and he actually beat him. But the third Hokage was Kagame Uchiha, father of Shisui Uchiha, and he reigned for a long time, right? Orochimaru and Jiraiya and all that shit was still trained by Hiruzen. Danzo still had a hatred for the Uchiha. They were doing their thing. One thing led to another, and Third Great Ninja War happens. Obito don't die or anything like that. They actually get away, and Obito has a Sharingan, and Kakashi's still Kakashi. But they're like rivals now. It's not just Guy; it's like all three of them. They're pushing each other to be better. They didn't die that day. Um, Orochimaru is like the real fucking villain in this timeline, right? He, seen people die and other things, and he's like, well, damn, I want to like learn jutsu and other things. Um, so he's trying to, become immortal and all that shit. At the same time, the Nine Tails incident happens because Orochimaru does that, right? He leaves the village early. Hiruzen, tries to fight him off, and then he just disappears, and he's like, I'll catch the Nine Tails. He caught the Nine Tails. He sealed it away, or he didn't seal it away. He took Kushina, and then he like forced Kushina to unleash the Nine Tails. Boom, and after that, the Nine Tails was unleashed. Danzo still had a good, relationship with Orochimaru, because see, he wanted eyes. Um, this don't happen though. This it don't happen like the way you think. Not this time. All right, y'all. That shit don't happen this time. I won't let that shit happen, right? So this is what happened instead. So Orochimaru released the Nine Tails on the village, right? Um, Kagame Uchiha is fighting against the Nine Tails, but Fugaku was actually beforehand. Fugaku was made the fourth Hokage because Kagame wanted to, be a father and raise Shisui a little bit. He was getting older too, so he's like, "Yeah, man, my son and shit." And he's like, "Yeah, man, I got you." Because Fugaku was also well respected in the Uchiha clan, so he became the fourth Hokage. He started running that shit with the Nine Tails, and he was doing his thing, but Orochimaru caught him like, like out of the fucking side and shit. It was on some like snake shit, so he got fucked up. So he ended up dying that day, unfortunately. Um, and then I had the audacity to try to steal bodies later, of his sons, right? Um, Fugaku died, and then Kagame took over again. Uchiha massacre didn't happen. Danzo led a Hawk faction against Kagame Uchiha. Hiruzen ran Danzo out of the village, and they had like it was now a new faction. It was Orochimaru's basically Akatsuki and Danzo's Hawk faction outside of the village, right? Um, Danzo still had like some like people who were loyal to him, right? And they worked for um, Kagame's like security detail. Because he had put like seals on him and like brainwashing techniques because he was a foundation member, right? So he was like, okay, you're gonna let Orochimaru come into the village again. He ended up fighting against Hiruzen and killing Hiruzen. They all found out about that shit and they were like, oh shit. Chunin exams were going on and all that shit, right? Like usual. He even tagged Sasuke and shit, right? But he ain't seeking him for power or anything this time. They weren't doing that shit. Not this time. Kagame Uchiha got boxed and fought against Orochimaru. He sealed his arms away like Hiruzen was supposed to. And really fucked his ass up. Like even burnt his face a little bit. Like half of his face got burnt the fuck up because he knew Fireball Jutsu really well. Shisui was told his dad died, and like he was like, damn, everybody found out. Itachi was still part of the league. The only Akatsuki members, it ain't like there's no Uchihas in the Akatsuki this alternate storyline. So then Kagame died and Obito becomes the fifth Hokage. They were talking about Kakashi, they were talking about Guy, but then they were like, Obito, Obito, Obito. Obito was there when Naruto and Sasuke was fighting against Gaara, and he, helped, save them from the beast. He helped save the ones who didn't, like, because Naruto actually, fucked Gaara up, because they're both Jinchuriki, right? So he was like, okay. About that though, Minato had died, earlier on, trying to go find Danzo. They ended up jumping his ass in the woods. He didn't know what was going on. Because he thought they were allies and they weren't. They killed him, right? With a hawk faction at Danzo, they didn't like Danzo Shimura. Obito became the fifth Hokage. Under Obito, they started, rebuilding and all that shit, right? Kakashi continued to raise Naruto and Sasuke. Jiraiya took Naruto and Sasuke was trained by Kakashi. Um, After that, 2 years had passed, and the Akatsuki wanted to make moves on Naruto. Um, the fucking moves that they tried to make, you know, um, it was tough, man. It was tough because, um, in this timeline, so Obito, so they took Gara, right? They took Gara and they sealed him away. Obito told them to go. Shisui was being recommended as a sixth Hokage because Obito wanted to step down. But he hadn't stepped down yet. That would happen later, actually. So Itachi, saved, Naruto here and there. Um, the Akatsuki, um, basically Itachi got killed by Orochimaru, who was like powered now. See, this guy didn't just have the jutsu he had now. He had come across Danzo, and they had an exchange for eyeballs. Eyeballs of Kagame Uchiha. They took his eyes. Um, each one had an eyeball, so they were able. He was able to get Itachi, catch Itachi lacking. This led to Sasuke awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan because he found out that Orochimaru was able to kill Itachi. You know, it was a hard fought battle too. It was extreme diff. But Orochimaru was able to, come out alive with that one. Stole his eye and then tried to take his body too. Shisui actually saved the body though. He saved his body and got out of there. Um, they heard about that shit and he was like, you know what, I'll take my boy. Um, Guess what, man? You're gonna be the sixth Hokage, and I want to handle Orochimaru myself. That's what Obito said. He was like, I'll handle Obito. Obito, we're gonna handle Orochimaru ourselves. He stepped down as fifth Hokage so he could, actually protect the younger Uchiha because he didn't like that shit at all. So Obito went with Kakashi to fight. However, he was met by another person. This guy's name was Nagato. Nagato had the eyes of Madara implanted in by, Orochimaru later on, though. And this happened because, he knew about some things and, he knew about some shit. Um, Nagato was fighting against Obito and Kakashi. Um, they were in a, like, great fucking battle, but Nagato actually had the upper hand, right? This led to um, the fourth great ninja about to start, right? Um, Shisui was like, damn, Um, Pain was summoned by Orochimaru, like after mid fight, and they went to go get the eight tails. That led to the five Kage summit. Shisui was there talking. None of that shit with the manipulation acts happened. But they were like, we have to stop Orochimaru. He's been collecting tail beasts and other shit. Killed Uchiha for eyes and other stuff. He's trying to like become the most powerful being on the planet. He has eyeballs of the Uchiha. He's gonna take this Nagato guy's eyes too. Um, they tried to run up on the leaf, but we had two people there, but they ended up in the hospital, right? So, um, Obito and Kakashi ended up in the hospital. The fourth Great Ninja War happened, and the Akatsuki that were still alive were alive. Kabuto revived a whole bunch of like shinobi. Um, all the ones that were like previous Kages, like all the previous Kages got revived. Everyone that was dead got recouped. All like Hashirama and Tobirama, Minato who went Hokage, they got recouped. Jiraiya got recouped because he ended up dying too. Um, they all fought in this war. Shisui, helped fight against like Madara and Hashirama and all of them. But it was to like no end because they were protecting Orochimaru, who was becoming the Ten Tails. Jinchuriki, trying to. Um, Sasuke got there and was like trying to fight against Orochimaru. They all like what had happened was Shisui got there and he used Koto on some of the undead ones, right? Boom, boom, and then he dead Uchiha because Itachi got brought back too, and Itachi got hit with that shit like boom, and Fugaku got hit with it, and they're like, okay, well fix this shit real quick. They boxing other people. The Uchihas were on the move and shit, right? To save the world this time, and Naruto had to be in the mix too because Naruto, they like, he had Senju blood. He was a cool fucking guy. That's what Sasuke was telling them. He was like, Naruto's fine. He ain't like those guys. He's just he's just that boy who has the nine tails and shit, man. He's fine. And they were like, okay, okay. Um, that's fine. He can help you box it. Orochimaru. So one thing led to another, and Orochimaru is powerful, right? Because he has Dojutsu, he has Rinnegan, Sharingan, all the tail beasts, and then he has Sage powers too. So he's like OP as fuck, right? But he's like ugly as fuck too. He's like this big ass monster thing, like, blah. And they're like, okay, shit. Yeah, stop him. Now Kage is not coming in this. Like he just was like she was about this is basically what happened, right? It's some bullshit, right? So she's like, okay, she looked like she was gonna come and she was like, wait, what is that? I don't like Orochimaru looks ugly as fuck and she's like, you're the one trying to bring me back to life. You know, I'll just stay over here. I'm fine. Yeah. So Orochimaru ended up, losing his shit because he couldn't summon Kage, and he was like, and then they boxed him, man. With all of that was when all that was done, Obito was like, Shisui was like, "Do you want to be Hokage?" And he was like, "Nah, man. Rin was still alive, so he was like, I got kids and other things." Shisui was like, I think I want to too. But Sasuke's still a boy. He's still 17 yet. He's like, he still has some, time to grow. Um, And he was like, "Yeah, man, I have to grow." And he like went and saw the world and shit. He was like, other things. He even like learned about nature energy from Naruto and shit. He was like, "Oh, cool. This is how you enter Sage mode and shit." He actually like listened to Naruto a little bit. And he was like, "All right, that's cool." 10 years later, or we'll say, by the time he was 30, they said, "Cool." The seventh Hokage became Sasuke, and that is the Uchiha dynasty. If I were to write it right. So basically, the first Hokage was Madara. He died, and then Izuna became the Hokage, second Hokage. He died, and then Kagame became the third Hokage. For a time, he reigned, and then he gave it to Fugaku. He was still alive, though. Kagame was still alive. Fugaku died after holding the position for only a month. Kagame took the position back for some years and was killed by Orochimaru. Kagame gave the role, or they voted that Obito should be the next Hokage, the fifth Hokage. Obito stepped down after 3 years and gave it to Shisui. Shisui became the Hokage, and he was the Hokage for a good bit of time. And then when Sasuke became 30, he became the seventh Hokage, and that is the Uchiha dynasty. Be cool on the corner and let me know what you think about that in the comments.